Welcome to today's webinar. Today we're going to be looking at the ArcGIS Story Maps with a focus on the new story map builder. My name is Evelyn Lele, and I'll be taking you through this session. So in case you have any questions in the course of this presentation, kindly use the chat section. Our team is on standby and they'll be able to address any questions or issues that you will encounter in the course of this presentation. And then this webinar is being recorded and the recording will be availed on our YouTube channel. A playlist of the other webinars and all the recordings that have been done will also be shared on the chat section. So once again, you're most welcome to today's session, and we're looking at ArcGIS Story Maps with a focus on the new story map builder. So storytelling is one of the most powerful ways of actually conveying or communicating information. And every map tells a story that depicts either a place, which is a location, or the perspective that the person who made the map actually had in mind. So every map is able to tell a story, and storytelling is one of the most powerful ways of actually telling stories. So today we're looking at the ArcGIS Story Maps. So ArcGIS Story Maps, this is a web-based application on the ArcGIS platform that enables you to share your maps in the context of a narrative and include a multimedia content. So multimedia content here, we are talking about images, we are talking about videos, and you can also embed content from the web. So this is really a very, using story maps, you're able to actually tell your story quite powerfully. They say that what I see, I remember. So the fact that a story map has the multimedia content and the narratives together in this application, that makes it a very easy way and interesting way of actually telling stories. So what can you be able to do with story maps? There are quite a number of things that you're able to do with story maps. What we're having today here is a presentation, and I chose to have this presentation in the form of a story map. So this is one of the ways of actually telling your story using the story map. So you can actually be able to make presentations using story maps. So if, for example, as an organization, you want to do your report, your business report, which has the summary of all activities you did maybe in the year and planned activities, you can actually have these in a story map. So you can actually do a report in form of a story map. Then maybe as an individual or as an organization, you want to build your portfolio, you want to showcase the works that you have done. Story maps is definitely one of those ways of showcasing the works that you have actually done. Then if you're working maybe in an industry where you need to promote and market your events, like say in the tourism industry, and you need to market the tourist attraction sites, you can actually use story maps to tell your stories and actually market your activities and events. And maybe you just want to tell a story about a specific theme, maybe about an interesting theme that you have actually come across. So you can actually use story maps to tell that. So there's so many ways you can actually be able to use story maps. This can only be limited by you. So there are so many ways. You can actually use story maps for literally everything, telling all the stories that you've wanted to tell. So that's one, storytelling. Then you can actually be able to publish and share your stories. So when you're publishing and sharing your stories, you can either choose to publish your story with only members of your organization. Remember, with story maps, you'll need to have an ArcGIS Online account. So you can choose to share your stories with members of your organization, or you can choose to share your stories with members of a specific group within your organization. So for instance, if you're maybe in a particular organization, say the ministry, and there are different departments within the ministry. So you can have the groups in the ministry, you can have the departments in the ministry as groups. So you can choose to share your stories with specific people within your department. You can create and publish your collection of all your favorite maps. And then you can be able to manage your stories. You can edit, you can reshare, you can publish, and all that. So the first story maps were created in 2012, and these were the classic, what we're calling the classic templates that we've been using for the longest time. So with the release of this template, there was wider acceptability, and other templates were developed over time. So we've had quite a number of the classic templates that we've been using to do story maps. So on my screen, On the right, you can be able to see that this is a screenshot of the various configurable templates that you could actually be able to use to create story map. For instance, we have the story map cascade. So with the cascade, it gives you you're actually able to give a story with having your text and your multimedia content with both 2D and 3D experience by simply scrolling. We'll be looking at some of the stories that have been done with this template. Then we have story map shortlist. This is also a very interesting template that has been used over time, especially if you want to showcase places of interest or you want to market or promote your activities, especially for the tourism sector. This has been really one of those templates that have been used. And so we've had quite a number of templates. So with the classic templates that we've used before, one had to really determine how to tell their story by choosing the right template. So you had to be very sure that you have chosen the right template for you to be able to tell your story. So these were the classic templates that we have been using for the longest time. So in 2019, we have now the release of the new story map template, which we are calling the ArcGIS Story Map Builder, which was launched last year. That was in 2019. So with the story map builder, the story map builder gives us a new experience whereby we're able to get the experience of the classical templates in one template, as opposed to having to use the individual templates that we've been using before. And this is quite easy. So you're able to mix and match the various experiences from the classic templates in a single place. So this is what the story map builder is actually able to give you. And one of the things with the story map builder is that we now have new design tools. We'll be looking at some of the design tools we have in the block palette shortly. And then we have express maps. So as opposed to having to create a map before you actually start telling your story, with the new story map builder, you can be able to create simple maps within a very short time, points to the location where you want to show and all that. And then the other thing with the new story map builder is that we also have new publishing workflows. So you do not have to really struggle with saving your content as you create your story. As you create your story, the story is actually automatically saved. So that's really, really interesting. So the new story map builder is actually bringing a new experience to storytelling, where you're able to combine the experiences that we actually had in the previous classical templates. So how do we get started with the new story map builder? Simply go to ArcGIS Story Maps. That is storymaps.arcgis.com, and then you will be prompted to sign in. So this is the interface that you will get when you go to storymaps.arcgis.com. Then you'll be able to sign in with your username. Remember, I said that for you to be able to create story map, you need an ArcGIS Online account. So you'll sign in with your ArcGIS Online credentials. So once you're signed in, if it's the first time you're creating a story, there will be a button for you to create a new story. And the first thing that you will be able to create when you're creating your story with a story map is what we are calling the cover. So the cover has the title as well as the multimedia content that you're using. So for instance, you can choose to use an image or a video. So on the cover, you'll have the image. So I have taken a screenshot of one of the stories I was trying to develop on the alarm of a rising teenage pregnancies in Kenya. So for this particular case, I chose to have an image just showing the concept of what I'm going to be talking about. So the thing with your title is that the title has to be really interesting so that your readers can be interested in reading through your story. And then just ensure that when you're creating the cover, ensure that the images and the videos and the text that you're using should be able to work well, so that you do not have a lot of conflicting information on your cover. Your cover should be as attractive as possible so that the readers can be able to actually gain interest in going through your story. So we'll be trying one in the course of this presentation. So once you're done with the cover page, or doing the cover, now the title, the subtitle, then you now need to start building your narrative. So one thing with story maps is that it's a flow of thought. So you have to really think through what is it that you want your readers or your audience to get. So there has to be that flow of thought. So it definitely has to take some time for you to think through what you're going to tell your reader. So the next step is building your narrative. So as I mentioned, we have new design tools within the block palette. So the block palette has powerful set of options that enable you to tell your story. So this screenshot here is showing what we are calling the block palette, which has very many options that you are actually going to use when creating your story. So the first option that we have is the text. So this allows you to type in whatever you want to type in, or copy text about the story you want to give from whichever place you have that saved, and then paste it here. So this is very, very important. So you can be able to edit the text, the font size, the font style, and you can be able to give the text specific colors and so on and so forth. Then we have what we are calling the button and line separator. This is mainly to ensure that as you do your story, you're able to separate maybe the introduction from the body and the conclusion and the rest of the story. Then we have the other option, which we are calling the multimedia options. So the multimedia options, we have several options here. We have the image option. So with the image option, you can be able to use graphic. You can be able to use images as you tell your story. You can be able to add audios and videos to your story. You can be able to add maps, and you can also be able to embed content from the web. So then we have this section here that we are calling the immersive block. So this also has various options that you can be able to use when creating your story. For instance, I just picked a few. We have I'm going to just explain these with two of these. So we have the sidecar layout. So as you do your story, you might want to have both text and images or videos within your story. So we have two options within the sidecar layout. So we have the floating panel. So for the floating panel, this is mainly suitable when you want to have the emphasis of your story being images with very short captions or text within your story. Then we have the docked panel. So for the docked panel, this is good if you want to have a longer narrative, or you want to have a longer narrative of your story, and as well as use the images within your story. So notice that this is a very interesting experience. Like if you're using the classical templates, you'll have to choose the specific template that has whatever you need. But with the new story map builder, you actually have this experience within the same template. Then we have what we are calling the guided tour, still under the immersive blocks. So for the guided tour, it can either be map focused or media focused. So for the one that is map focused, you're mainly looking at points of interest within your map. So this could be equated to what we had in the classic templates. That's the story map shortlist template that we had in the classical templates. And then we have the other one, which is media focused. So this one, you're mainly focusing on telling your story using images. So depending on the motive and what exactly you want to communicate, then you can be able to choose the options that you want to use when actually telling your story. And then, as I mentioned, the other very interesting thing about the new story map builder is the express map. So in the classical templates, you'd have to create your map somewhere, and then now import or link that map to your story map. But now with the new story map builder, you can actually build or create your map on the fly. So it makes it easy for you to be able to add points of interest within your map. It can be a single point or series of location, and even have pop-ups, routes, and even areas. So this is quite interesting. This is something really interesting. We'll be looking at that as we'll be doing the demo. Then the other thing with this is that you're able to change the base map. So as you create your map, you're able to have different base maps and get different fields depending on what you actually want to communicate with your story. So you can have an imagery base map, you can have a topographic base map. You can actually try out all the base maps that you have. So yeah, that's on the base map. So once you're done with building your narrative, then the other thing that you want to do is now adjust your design. So you're done building your narrative, and you now want to adjust. Maybe you want to fine tune your story so that it's interesting. So the next bit is adjusting your design. So on the same cover screenshot that we used, we're going to use this for the purposes of this presentation. So you can have a full cover layout. So a full cover layout means that the image is covering your whole screen with the title and subtitle added onto it, just as you can see it here. Or you can choose to have what we are calling a side-by-side cover layout. So for the side-by-side cover layout, the media content that you're using covers one side of your cover, and the other side has the title and the subtitle. So we have the side-by-side cover layout. Then the other layout that we can have is the minimal cover layout. So for the minimal cover layout, this gives you an option of including a horizontal format image on the title, or even not having an image at all. So depending on what you want, depending on how you want your story to be told, you can determine the cover layout that you choose. So you can have the full cover layout, you can have the side-by-side cover layout, you can have the minimal cover layout. So depending on what you want to achieve with your story. So the other thing about the layout is changing the theme. So we have different themes within the story map builder. So for instance, what I used for this particular presentation on this story map is the obsidian, which has mainly a black background. So you can experiment with different themes and see what best fits your story. So we have the summit, which is mainly the white background. We have the obsidian, like what I've just used for this particular story map, which gives you a black background. We have mesa and all this. So you can actually be able to change the theme and try out which theme best works for your story. Then the other thing, so once you're done with changing the theme and adjusting your design, then you'll want to share your story with maybe members within your organization or even members outside your organization. So once you're done creating your story, the next thing will be to publish and share your story. So of course, there are several publishing options. You can either publish, you can have your story private, so meaning that you have not shared your story with anyone. You can choose to have your story shared just with members of your organization. Then you can have your story shared with a specific group. As I said, maybe you have departments within your organization and then you want your story to be shared with specific members of specific department in your organization, so you can make use of the group. Or you can actually choose to make your story public and share it with everyone. So there are quite a number of options you can be able to use to share your story. So, and then the other thing with the new story map builder is that even after publishing, you're still able to edit your story. If you feel like there's something you needed to add, you can still edit your story and republish it again. Then you're able to also share your story on the various platforms. You can share it on email or even on the various social media platforms. So the new story map builder actually gives you a lot of functionalities that you can be able to use when telling your story. Then the other thing I need to point out is that just in case you're using the classic templates, or you've used the classic templates to share or create your stories, your story maps are not lost. You can still access the story maps, and you can actually still create new story maps with the new story map template that we have. That's the new story map. That's the new story map builder that we have. So so we're going to go through a short demonstration just to show us how to even sign into the new story map builder and even try and create a story. So for you to be able to sign in, simply go to storymaps.arcgis.com. Then you'll be able to sign in with your organizational credentials. So as I said, you'll need ArcGIS Online to be able to work with story maps. So I'm simply signing in to story maps, to the new story map builder. So when you sign in, you'll be able to see all the stories you've created. So for this case, the assumption is that we are creating a new story. So I'll simply come here and click on new story. Yeah, so we are starting a new story from scratch just to get a feel of how to be able to create your own story. So it's launching the story builder. So this is what I mentioned. This is the cover. This is the cover of your story. So you'll need to include the title of your story. You can include the subtitle, but that's optional. And then you should also add images or videos to your story. So for this particular one, we're still going to tell the story of the alarming rates of teenage pregnancies in Kenya. I'll just call it demo. And then I will add an image. So for the image, you can either drag and drop, or you can actually browse to where you have saved your images. So for the purposes of this presentation also, I have something here. So we can add the image to our story. So ensure that the title is very interesting to keep your readers or your audience wanting to read more about your story. So as I mentioned, you can be able to have different layouts of your cover. So under the design phase, so this is the full cover layout. This is the side-by-side cover layout, and this is the minimal cover layout. So we can try and see how this looks. So you can change the layout of your cover depending on what you want. So that's the side by side. You can also use the minimal cover layout. So depending on exactly how you want your story to look and what you want to do with your story, you can choose the design that best works for you. So maybe for this presentation, we can just leave it at the full cover, the first option that we had. Then maybe you want to add text to your story. Maybe you want to say something about your story. So you simply come here and add text. So for this particular presentation, I'm just going to copy and paste from my location where I have some text. This is just for demonstration purposes. So you can type in or actually copy and paste text. So I'm just going to just a minute. I'm just going to maybe write introduction. We're just introducing our story, and I'm going to paste the text that I've just copied here. So maybe you just want to say something about your story here. So this is what I called notice this green button here. When you click on the green button here, it gives you what we called the block palette. So from the block palette, you're able to see various options. So there's this option of adding text to your story. There's an option of adding an image to your story. There's an option of adding a video. There's an option of using the different layouts within your story, what we called the immersive blocks. So you can actually be able to choose the options that you want to use when telling your story. So we've added text to this, and then maybe in the next section we want to have so for this maybe you can even add a line separator, maybe just to separate the introduction and the rest of the story. Let's just do that. So you can actually add a line separator to separate the introduction and the rest of the story. So maybe in the next part of your story you want to have an image or a video. So still on the block palette, you can be able to choose the option that you want to use. So for this case, maybe we want to use the sidecar immersive block. And for the sidecar immersive block, we have two options. We either have the floating panel or the docked panel. So for this case, maybe let me choose the docked panel. So I want to continue my story, but I want to add both text and media. So maybe for this particular case, I want to add a video to my story. So I have a link to this particular to one of the videos. So I'm just going, again, this is for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to add a link to a video that I want to use for my story. So I'll simply come here and paste the link to my story. So this is a video by Citizen TV on teenage pregnancies. So I'm going to add that video. Yes, so that will be added to my story, and maybe again I need to maybe just have some explanatory text on the left hand side. So I'll again, for demonstration purposes, I have something here. So I'm just going to copy the text and then paste it here. Yeah, so we've managed to do the cover. We've managed to have maybe a brief explanation of our story, and then we've included a video about the story that we want to tell. Maybe we can try out something new. We want to add maybe a map to our story. So with the sidecar, you can be able to add several slides. So maybe in case within the same context you needed to add another slide, you can simply come here and click and you'll be able to add a new slide. So for this case, let's assume we want to create a new map. So there are two options. You can either import one of the maps that you have within your content within ArcGIS Online, or you can be able to use the new tool, that's the new Express map. So for this particular demo, I'm just going to try out something just to show us how you can be able to use the new Express map to create a map. So maybe I want to just show places of interest, maybe some of the places that have been affected by that have high rates of teenage pregnancies is maybe Kilifi. I think Kilifi is one of them. Yeah, Kilifi, Kenya. So I add this place to the map. Then maybe I want to add another place. Maybe the other place that has been affected is maybe Kwale. Yeah, so I can add Kwale to my map also. Yeah, so you can either have a single place or have multiple places. And again, on the places that you've selected, you can actually be able to add images or even a description of those places, which will be used as pop-ups for your story. So maybe for this case, let me just say we are done. And the beauty with this is that maybe if you want to just show an area, you can quickly sketch that area by simply coming here and clicking on any of these tools, and you can actually draw just to show your area of interest. So this is a great improvement in the storytelling, since we didn't have this in the classical builder. So maybe what else do we need to add? So you can add any other thing, and maybe if you have added something and you need to undo, there's an option of actually undoing and redoing. So this is quite interesting. So let's say we are done with that particular map. We can also choose the layout of the map. Maybe the other thing that I forgot is so we can choose the layout of the map, whether you want it to have maybe the map on the side and then you can have text on one side. So you can try out very many options with the new story map builder, and then you can also be able to change the base map. So you can also be able to change the base map. So I just want to show us how to change the base map to our map. Let me just get it and add a new map. So still using the same Express map. So under settings, there's an option of you being able to change the base map. So what we have right now is the geography map. So you can be able to change and use maybe the imagery base map or any other base map of your choice. So depending on what you want, on how you want to tell your story, you can be able to choose different base map templates. So we can say we are done. So back to our story. So we've added text, we've added videos, we've added a map. So assuming that's the end of our story and we need to publish our story. So before you publish your story, all the changes that we have been making on the story are actually automatically saved, but your story will show that this is a draft. So before you're able to publish your story, it will show that your story is actually a draft. So you'll simply come here under publish options. So we have various options that you can be able to use to publish your story. So you can either choose to just have the story being viewed by you, maybe if you're still in the editing process, or you can actually be able to share your story with members within your organization, or share your story with everyone, that's the public, or choose a specific group within your organization where you actually want to share your story with. So for this case, let's say I'm sharing my story with only members of my organization. So I'll simply come here and publish story. So once it's done, it will actually be able to show me that my story has been published. Yeah, and you can actually be able to see what the story that we have created. So in case maybe you just published your story and realized that maybe you needed to add something, you can still edit your story. And after finishing your edits, you can still republish. Or maybe after publishing a story, you realize, no, I didn't need to publish this story. There's also an option of unpublishing. So the new story map builder gives you very many options of actually creating your story. So I'm just going to show us cases. I'm just going to show us samples of story maps that have been created using the various templates that we've had, both the classic templates and using the new story map builder. So one of the stories that is quite interesting is this story here. The title of this story is Uprooted. So this story is actually about refugees, and I like this story because it actually tells, like, right from the cover, it actually tells a story. This video is actually telling a story. You can be able to see these people are actually refugees. Some of them are looking tired. Like the image on the video on the cover is actually telling a story. So this is one of the stories that has been done. This is using one of the classical templates, the story map cascade. So then you can be able to scroll through and read through your story. Then we have another one also on our health, our future, with the same template. You can be able to scroll through and see the story. So this is on the classic templates that we've had. There was another interesting story on on national parks and game reserves in Kenya. So this is also using the classic templates that we have, showing the points of interest. That's the national parks, reserves, and all that, using the story map classic template. This is the shortlist. So you can simply click on the specific tab and you're able to see the details of that particular place of interest. And also on the map, by clicking on a particular point of interest, you're able to see information about that particular point of interest. You're able to see images about that place and a brief description of the place. So these are some of the samples of story maps that we have that have been done from using the classic story map templates. And we also have story maps that have been done using the new story map builder. So we have one interesting story on empowering Maasai women. This was done last year and published this year. So this is a story using the new story map builder, just showing what the African Conservation Center is doing to empower the Maasai women. So you can scroll through and actually read through the story. And from this story, it's actually quite interesting. You can be able to see the multimedia content that has been used, as well as the text. So that's one sample. Then there was another story also, still done with the new story map builder, from pastoralism to dairy farming. So this is a story just indicating what has been done. And you can be able to actually scroll through the story, see the area of interest and what the story is all about. So whether you're using the new story map builder or the classic templates, you can still be able to create your story. But the new story map builder gives you more options and functionality, since the experience of what we had in the classic templates is actually brought together within one interface. So those are some of the stories that have been done with the new story map builder. So in case you want to learn more about how to be able to create story maps, and there's some resources here for you. I attached resources here on how you can be able to create your story maps and read more about story maps. This presentation will be, the link to this story map that I used for the presentation will be shared with us on the chat section, so you can actually be able to access the material that I used for this presentation and the content that I shared. So we have a call to action, and the call to action is that we have the ArcGIS Story Map competition, and this year's competition is actually focused on sustainable development goals. So the link to this competition will also be shared on the chat section. So this competition is actually open. You can be able to participate, create your stories and share. You could be one of the winners with this. And one of the things to note are the key dates and deadline submissions. So the deadline for this story map competition is the 25th of November. So ensure that you have created your story by then and shared with Esri. Then the winners will be announced in February 2021. So I'm sure with this, you can actually be able to create very interesting stories. And notice that the theme for this particular competition is a focus on the sustainable development goals. So this will also be shared on the chat section. So that marks the end of my presentation. I'm going to now invite anyone with any questions. Anyone?